the COP of action. And I believe that, we have had limited action on all the resolutions and outcome of COPs to date. So we have taken an approach that is practical, one in which we must have a fair system. And if you look at all the issues we have been able to talk about at this COP, and to position, not only to position those issues, but to demonstrate Guyana's leadership, Guyana's commitment, and ways in which Guyana example can bring the world together. And let's start with the last session I was just in, and that is on energy transition. It is important to note that in the last 3 years, out of this 7% growth in energy demand, there was a 7% growth in energy demand in the last 3 years. Out of that 7%, fossil fuel was still 60% of that growth. Now, what that means is that the reality of the world that we're living in is that fossil fuel will still be here for some time. Now, if you look at the best case scenario, that is to get to net zero position. You're talking about moving from 100 billion barrels to about 25 billion barrels by 2050. Now, you will still need fossil fuel. In every scenario, you will still need fossil fuel. The moral and ethical argument is, should we pursue a policy that says no new development? Then, as I said today, you are protecting a market that has already profiteered on fossil fuel. The approach, if it is climate related, must be one that takes out the least effective producers, the producers with the highest carbon footprint, and the most inefficient producers from the system. And then you have the other situation, where at the end of 2024, almost 34.5% of the world's electricity still came from coal. And that is the most damaging form of pollution and the damaging impact on the environment. So what is the action plan to move away from the most inefficient forms of energy that begins with coal, and then those who are producing petroleum and fossil fuel in the least efficient manner with the highest carbon footprint? And that is a moral dilemma. Who will produce that 24 billion barrels in 2050, or that 30 billion barrels? The other thing is that whilst we talk about the transition, we have a new dimension. With AI, we have seen exponential growth in the demand for energy. Where is that growth coming from? Who is going to produce that additional energy, and at what cost? So what we have been arguing, yes, we support transition. The world must transition, yes, but what that transition must come with. How are developing countries are going to deal with their debt burden? How are they going to get concessional loans and financing for the transition? How is it we're going to value nature, value forests, and value other important products that are related to the transition? Because if you transition and we lose forests to mining, we lose forests to logging, we lose forests to the production of rare earth and so on, then you're in the same equation. So today at that forum, I said we have to look at things in a dispassionate way. How is it we're going to create this balance? We cannot create that balance with extremism on both sides. You have a round table on energy transition, and we lock out the petroleum producers, the companies. We invite the companies who are investing heavily in renewable, but you lock out the countries, the companies that are investing in petroleum. We have to create a win-win scenario. We have to see how we can get these companies to invest in technology, in research and development, to reduce their carbon footprint, to reduce the impact, and to create a more dynamic ecosystem through which petroleum products are developed. So, and then when you come to forests, look at what the European Union is pursuing. We have said consistently that nature product must find a place in the market mechanism that Europe is pursuing. Yes, they're pursuing a high-value carbon credit system. But that system still does not accept nature. And these are some of the challenges that we have to fight. Tropical forests, getting nature in there. And this has been Guyana's position from day one. We must not be arguing whether tropical forests and nature products and biodiversity should be on the agenda. These are important aspects of the climate equation and achieving net zero, but more than achieving net zero, achieving sustainable living, sustainable livelihood, and an ecosystem that support the livelihood of countries and people in a holistic way. There are a number of things like today, and at these COPs, the side meetings are important. We had a meeting with the Habitat for Humanity. And one of the things that we're talking about is how do we create sustainable housing? Sustainable housing that has a component of nature-based solution. We have, for example, large indigenous population in Guyana. How do we incorporate nature solutions in the housing problems within hinterland community? How do we create these sustainable housing? How do we create an ecosystem to incentivize the use of nature, the byproducts of nature in creating sustainable housing solutions? So the world is moving now. It's not only about climate change, carbon credit. It's about nature-based solution for every single problem that we have. And this is where Guyana is leading. And that is what the LCDS is designed to do. It's designed to look at a development model that incorporates nature, that incorporates climate consideration in the results that we want to achieve. Whether it's housing, the use of natural gas, what is that natural gas going to do? And how do we integrate that to finance nature-based solution and nature-based outcomes? And if you look at some of the things that we're doing close to Georgetown, the Mahaika River Tour is an example as to how we can convert this nature, convert this ecosystem into a mainstream product of tourism, a mainstream product of nature, environmental services, and then incorporating the indigenous element of that ecosystem, whether it's farming, and create higher value of products. So even that ecosystem, we can have organic farming, we can have fruits and vegetables coming out of a different quality. Then that is how you incorporate nature and create a value chain. And that is what Guyana has been championing. How do we create a value chain? And what constitutes that value chain? You cannot tell a community that we want you to protect your ecosystem without telling them how we're going to develop your infrastructure. How are we going to give you access to better health care, better education? How are we going to deal with your housing program? So that is where Guyana, I think, stands on good footing. We have been able, since 2009, we had a setback in 2015 and 2020 to incorporate nature. Look at what we're doing in the off-grid system, whether it's Leg 1, Essequibo, Wakenham, the Essequibo Islands, Bartica, and other areas, building out these solar farms, the mini hydro projects, and still pursuing a hydro project. So let us say mining. You can't get away from sustainable mining. But what can we do? If the new mines that are coming require 50 or 60 or 70 megawatts of power for the refining, and they can get that power from renewable source, it reduces the carbon footprint through a nature solution. So, and then you have to match that against the consequence of building out the infrastructure. So the side meetings with Habitat, the UAE, we're talking to the UAE, Germany, Ireland, Norway, all of them, not only to sign on the Biodiversity Alliance, but for us to ensure, and we are at a very fragile stage of the negotiations. Because if the European Union is allowed to lock out nature-based solution from the compliance market, then it will be a serious blow for countries like ours, forested countries and tropical forest countries, because and biodiversity. So we have to let the European Union understand that they cannot pursue this strategy of not assigning a value to nature-based solution and to forests and biodiversity in the compliance market that they're setting up. So that by itself is an important and weighty subject matter that Guyana is championing. So I would say that we have been able not only to demonstrate our leadership, but to position ourselves in pole position on biodiversity, pole position on tropical forests. Now we're supporting President Lula on the TFFF, but we have made it very clear that the TFFF is not a replacement of what is there. It's an addition on the many options available for forested countries. Hopefully, we will be able to announce before the end of this year some more agreement on forest carbon and to have more partners aligned with us. You know, so I think that all in all, at this COP, we were able to continue advancing our case, but more importantly, sending a strong signal that nature-based solutions cannot be avoided, overlooked, or excluded from any system that we are moving forward with. So I have just received some updated statistics on biodiversity, and it's even worse than the stats I had. You have more than 70% of the world biodiversity we have lost. And Brazil cannot pursue in a comprehensive way the TFFF if it does not include biodiversity, because the entire ecosystem is at risk here. And what we are pursuing is the survival of this planet. Biodiversity and the ecosystem surrounding biodiversity is about the survival of the planet. It's about the survival of science. It's about the survival of medicine. It is about the survival of pharmaceutical, indigenous culture, indigenous people. And if we don't arrest this situation, then we will be heading into a worse crisis than we are today. That is why our first objective is to mainstream biodiversity in the climate equation, in the COP discussion, and then to build a supporting infrastructure with membership, pushing biodiversity. We don't want to diffuse what is happening in many different directions. But what we are seeing is that biodiversity is so central to net zero and everything about sustainability that it must be advanced at the same speed that the other issues are advancing. And that is why we're building this coalition, to ensure that this happens and that attention is brought to this massive loss in the global system. Well, I would like to, once again thank the technical team from Guyana here at COP. It's just amazing. You know, most Guyanese get to see the main speeches, but the side meetings, the important negotiations that will take place in the next 2 weeks. Using this opportunity to discuss with almost 15, 20 world leaders and other leaders of organizations, bilateral issues, not only focusing on COP and the environment, but other developmental challenges, is essential and important. And the Guyana story, I would say, has been making remarkable rounds here at COP. You yourself have seen the level of interest, optimism, and of course, the level of support and respect that Guyana has at COP and here in Brazil and from around the world. So I'm just pleased at the work our technical people, the work that they are doing in advancing Guyana and keeping us on that trajectory and maintaining the respect that we have. Thank you.